I forgot to mention that the 3-point works on this tractor. Never checked the hydraulic fluid on this. Dipstick is questionable. The fluid looks kind of contaminated. It isn't necessary when changing the fluid to take this top off, but I'm going to do that anyway just to check how everything looks inside. Couldn't they have designed this to have a bend right here to be able to access this one? Of course, it's not slotted. Moment of truth. Since it's in neutral, it's centered on there. If I were to accidentally put it back together, move to be stuck in gear, you can see me do that in a different video. I guess someone didn't have a gasket last time they're in here. Doesn't look bad. Looks pretty low though. I think there's supposed to be more in there than that. I'll start at the back and work forward. The back one is the square pipe plug, then the hydraulic pump, then the transmission. Looks like this might have been leaking. If you don't have square sockets, you should get some. See how it's a double square? It's 2 squares with sharp corners. Okay. Nothing in the rear end and nothing in the transmission. Hopefully I recorded any of that. It's supposed to be 5 gallons coming out. There ain't that much. It feels like there's maybe part of a dipstick or something laying down right next to the hole. I know the transmission looked empty, but let's see if even a drop comes out. Oh yeah, not too sludgy in there, just a little film. Because of the amount of sludge I was feeling in the hydraulic pump and a mystery piece that was rolling around, potentially part of a dipstick, I will pull the hydraulic pump. It's looking like maybe some of that fluid came out the rear. So I'll replace this seal on here. Let's see if I can pull it free. Of course, I stopped filming for a second, and that's when it came out. I see some sealant in here too. Oh boy, where was all that fluid? The splines look good. Anything fun in here? More sludge. Good ½ inch of sludge on the bottom there. Where's that drain hole for the rear end? Oh, maybe there was just too much junk in the way. I think I just knocked some loose. Hard piece of sludge. That's what was blocking the drain hole. Now it's just a matter of taking off all of those. I usually leave a couple bolts in so that when it finally breaks free, like it just did in the back, it won't just fall right off. That wasn't too bad. It wiggled down. Usually gets kind of caught up on these edges of the pumps. Let's see what that was. Yeah, it looks like a dipstick that was just laying down in there. Wish there was a filter on these things. I'm glad that I am doing this. The forbidden grimace shake. So that's the one I found in there, and this one just broke apart in my hands. These are broke now and not right after I got everything together. Wow. Out in my in-series junkyard, this 9 or 2 in rear end has a dipstick. I would hope or think that they're the same. So looking at that one that just broke, It's made out of like flat stock and has the little tension mechanism being punched out of it. The one I just grabbed and the one that I found inside of it are both round, lining up the full lines. They look roughly the same height. So I just sent it to the parts washer. It's very tempting to take it apart and rebuild it, even though it was working. So there's some witness marks on here where someone had tried to pry this off previously. Nice big gouge here, small one here and here, and likewise there's a couple of these up on the front side. There's no choice but to go all the way. There should be another pin in there. Yep. Yep. It'll be like that. So then that little piston's down in there. It's interesting how they're all loose, but they come out together. Just enough surface tension to do that. So that piston's down in there as well. So they're basically glued on with a gasket. There's some area here where you can give it some encouragement to come off. While I was tapping this one with a lead hammer, that one just popped off. So to line them up, to slide them out, the thrust bearing, bushing, rides in there. Doesn't seem factory. Oops. Still springy. That spring and plunger still works. Same with that one. There's quite a bit of suction holding those little pistons in there, but this is the only way I know how to get them out. Like that. And then let's get the one that's stuck down in here. Got it. So I'm cleaning it up and reassembling it. There's some very light witness marks here, but I'd say it's in pretty great shape actually. I'm gonna put some grease on it so that it doesn't run dry at first. This is about as clean as I'm gonna get this. It's smooth. It's pretty clean. It's time to go back together. I'm concurrently rebuilding the hydraulic pump on my 51, and when I took it apart, it had this little metal spring cap on the end of the big spring. I guess to have something to push against that cotter pin that's down in there, so it's not just pushing against the spring itself. There is something like this in the parts diagram, but I haven't found one in most of the other hydraulic pumps I've taken apart, except for this one. I'm going to borrow it out of that one to put in this one, and then replace it in that one later. These are pretty hard to search for. They're just called like spring caps or something. Hopefully the local hardware store has some. The internet actually wasn't too much of a help. This particular one is 3/8 at the narrow part, about 0.4 at the spring. The cap is about 5/27. The spring that it goes into is, let's just say, a 1/2 inch, 20 thou under. So this fits in like that. So I'll put it in there, and this pump will be done for the second time. I just need to clean this up, then it can go back in. So there's like a series of walls here that I guess serve as kind of a sediment bowl for the rear end. And then right in this area, there's like a depression that I just scooped out probably a couple pounds of hardened sludge and wet sludge. And then in the front end, in this area, like particularly in these corners, there was another several handfuls of sludge, but I've got that all cleaned out pretty well. I'm going to do this on my other tractors now that I know about these particular areas. I got the gasket surface clean. I'm going to put the hydraulic pump on now. Best way I've found is to angle the front up and in. It's kind of a close fit. Then in the back, you have to kind of work that rocker around to fit up into the hole. It's spring loaded and might want to get in the way. And as you're doing that, you reach into the dipstick cover, which has been removed, and you align the actuator rod into its home. That rod there on the far left. Didn't even need to use the impact. Just needed something with a little bit more torque. Should be a roll pin in there. I started to heat this up to press the shaft out so everything's nice and toasty, but it should press out pretty easy. There is another clip on this end. I'm going to press the seal out the back end. Sometimes I don't feel like firing up the sandblaster, so I just wire wheeled it off fairly well. I'm masking off those threads by just wrapping that old seal in a paper towel. This new seal is interesting. It has like 2 lips. This looks like more of an open side and has the spring, so that would go towards the fluid. Just want to get that started and square. I'll press it in. It's pretty solid. Yep, it's all the way down. Let's see if I can press this on without a press. Oh, I might put some grease on that. All these holes are blind, so I shouldn't need any thread sealant unless there's a bigger problem. None of these had lock washers on them, but I had some in stock. I will snug these up and then loosen the hydraulic pump and wiggle it, then tighten it back down, and then finish these off just to kind of maybe self-align that shaft a little bit more. Mostly just to annoy myself. I put these brackets back on completely filthy. The bolts are clean though, and they've got lock washers. This will be the final piece for right now. A lot of folks recommend Traveler UTF from Tractor Supply. This will be my first time using it. Don't see any leaks under the tractor. Just some leaks on top. Wow, that one is worn quite a bit. It's supposed to be just like a pin going through there. That one's pretty worn on that side too. I will resurrect this particular one. I like this old school cast knob. I guess for now I'll swap in one that I've already prepared. Basically, I'm simultaneously resurrecting my 48 and my 51. The 48 now is a little bit ahead of the 51. I'll probably finish up the 51 when the weather isn't so nice. But since the 48 is running and driving now, I will just borrow this top cover. It has the screw-in knob. If it wasn't for that, I'd be fine with just leaving it on there. But once I get this one done, I'll swap them back. Make sure that is in neutral. Make sure that spring's still in there. I'm going to bolt it down. The filler cap was actually still pretty good. I did put a new gasket on it. I am going to make this slotted. So that I don't have to remove that screw every time. And that should be it. Got to do a victory lap. Oh yeah. The ground is still pretty wet, so I wasn't worried about that air cleaner not being on there yet. Not really much dust kicking up today, but that'll be next on the list. For now, I'm going to call that a success.